And Becci, Marx has many good one-liners in this book, and I'm curious to hear what other people who are watching the show, what are your favorite quotes from the Communist Manifesto, or even just your favorite Karl Marx quotes? I'm curious. Put them in the comments. Let us know what you think. But one famous one, Becci, that he said was that the bourgeois creates its own gravediggers. So can you talk about how the Communist Manifesto describes the proletariat better? Let's make it more modern, the working class, and what makes these things distinct.
Yeah, so the first thing I think is in the Communist Manifesto, Marx and Engels start off by talking about how the development of capitalist society has led to an increasing polarization of classes into two hostile camps. So you have the working class, the proletariat, and the bourgeoisie, the capitalist class. And it describes the working class as being a class of labourers who live only so long as they find work. So people who have to work in order to live, who must sell themselves, are a commodity. And under capitalism, the workers are just appendages to their machines. They're paid enough to barely live, but not the full value of what they actually produce. And workers are paid in wages, in money, which they then have to give back to the capitalist class in rent, by going to the shops, by paying back loans, or they reference like pawnbrokers. And so those are some of like the negative things about what capitalism does to the working class. But the quote about creating their own gravediggers refers to the capitalism creates big workplaces. It creates big factories where a huge number of people are brought together to work and live alongside each other in the same conditions, making it possible to build a united and revolutionary class. So the manifesto says that for the working class, there is no distinction based on age or gender, that we're all just instruments of labour and we're more or less expensive based on our age or our gender or where we may live in the world. And it talks about what starts off as like collisions between individual workers and bosses, maybe over your wages or your working conditions. They start to become more collective collisions. So the experience of the working class under capitalism, there's like vast number of people that are all experiencing the same thing. That pushes them to organise collectively into trade unions and to parties. So the numbers of the working class grow as capitalism develops, and more layers of the population sink into the proletariat, the manifesto says. So people's conditions get worse as the control of the economy falls into fewer and fewer hands. But one of the most important things I think about the working class that's kind of set out in the manifesto is that the proletariat is the only revolutionary class under capitalism. It's also the first revolutionary class in history, which is a movement of the majority in the interest of the majority. And finally, the capitalist class is completely reliant on the working class to produce the wealth, to fight their wars. And I think that we see in this the working class's power, that we can see that is able to bring production and society as a whole to a halt, but also in being able to organise as a class for itself. It can fight to take political power and run society democratically in the interests of all. And that is also what's being put forward in the Communist Manifesto, not just kind of analysing what the working class is under capitalism, but what it would be under socialism and the power that it has.